Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to November's meeting of the County Council Executive. Councillor Martin Hill, I'm Chairman of this committee and Leader of the Council. So without further ado, welcome everybody, and can we have apologies please, Rachel?
Thank you. We have apologies from Councillor Davey and Councillor Mrs Woolley. We also have apologies from Glenn Garrett, Executive Director for Adult Care. Ros Cordy should be joining us on his behalf via Teams.
Thank you for that. Shall we move on then to any declarations of interest, please? Has anybody got any? Nobody's indicating, so I'll take that as a no. And then we move on to item 3 then, which is announcements by the leader, executive councillors and executive directors. Are there any such announcements, please? Not seeing any then, thank you. Move on to the item 4 then, which are the minutes of the this executive, which was held on the 5th of October. Is it your wish that I sign these as a true and accurate record? Is that agreed? All agreed? Thank you. Okay then, we move on to the substantive item then, which is extra care housing at Welton, in partnership with Lace Housing Limited. So, who is going to be introducing this paper? Ros. Yeah, I'll start with you, Councillor Bogart.
Thank you, Councillor Hill. This is an exciting project. It's at Welton and it's for 62 units for extra care. This is our second project that we have just been involved in. We've just done the DeWint at Lincoln. So this is really exciting news, and we will be looking at doing 20 units, taking on 20 units of nomination rights of the 62. So I hand over to Ros. Is Ros going? Are you doing it, Ros, or is Emma?
Good morning. Yes, we've got the team here, so it'll be Emma and Gareth that will be doing it. Thank you.
Hi, just trying to get my camera back on. Bear with me, I'll just get technical things sorted out. So hi everyone. So in terms of extra care housing, in terms of the model we've established now, we've had discussions at the executive previously in terms of a way that's safe and compliant with subsidy aid control and state aid funding. So a kind of a legal model that means that we buy nomination rights rather than enter into a true partnership. So in terms of the recommendation, it's asking for £1.6 million to a funding agreement from our Adult Care Capital Grant Programme to support the delivery of extra care accommodation at Welton. In return for that £1.6 million, we'd receive first right of refusal, nomination rights on 20 of those units for a 30-year period. A bit more detail about the specific scheme at Welton. It's a partnership between LCC, West Lincolnshire District Council and Lace Housing. It's a parcel of land where Beale Homes are bringing forward 350 units in terms of totality of housing. There are plans for Longhurst Housing Association to bring forward some affordable homes on that scheme, potentially some conversations around working age adults. But this scheme in particular has outlined planning permission for Lace Housing to bring forward, as Councillor Bokin said, 62 units of extra care. In terms of finance, there'd be a contribution from Homes England and Lace Housing, £1.5 million from Section 106 monies from West Lincolnshire District Council, and as the recommendations in this paper, to have £1.6 million from LCC. The scheme would be 62 one-bedroom apartments, so homes, with everyone having their own front door, their own tenancy agreement, and LCC would have nomination rights on just 20 of those, so a bit less than a third of those schemes. The real benefit in terms of the scheme we brought forward, the model we have, is that there are no void risks to LCC. So in terms of revenue funding going forward, there is no kind of contribution from LCC. The construction is planned to commence in autumn 22 with the completion of autumn 24. In terms of demand, I think we've had previous conversations that there isn't a hard and fast science to articulate demand, but we have a high degree of confidence that there's a need between 99 and 164 units of extra care within the West Lincolnshire District Council area. And at the moment, there are no extra care schemes in West Lindsey. And we expect that demand will increase by a further 37% by 2030 and 80% by 2040. So you can see there's a shift in terms of demographic growth and demand that's likely to come forward. In terms of finance, we have unused, unallocated capital reserves of a little over £7 million that would pay for this £1.6 million investment. We have a bespoke financial model for extra care programme to look at the return on investment. And in the paper that articulates just shy of £57,000 a year for those 20 units that would be looking to purchase the nomination rights on. It's really important to recognise that just focuses on those 20 units, and there's a greater saving from the entire 62 unit scheme that we're not necessarily funding up front to return that return investment. So in terms of the actual £1.6 million and the return on those 20 units, we expect the break-even point to be after year 23 of the 30-year proposals. So just to conclude, if the project is approved, it would increase the provision of extra care housing for older people in West Lindsey District. And as I said, we currently don't have any extra care housing in the district. And it would assist adult care and LCC in terms of offsetting medium and long-term revenue cost increases. Thank you.
Thank you for that. The scrutiny comments are there on page 28. I don't know, with Councillor Marfleet is not with us, is he? Councillor Parker, can you help us?
Councillor Marfleet, I think, is at a conference, so I've been asked to say something. Essentially, as on page 28, we can see the report from Scrutiny. Adult Scrutiny did not just welcome but supported the Welton extra care housing scheme. I think the point that wanted to be made that's different to just support is the third paragraph, where the committee raised the issue of better utilising the space and buildings of current NHS hospitals. That's a point that stands out. The opportunity for closer working in developing the one public estate could provide even more opportunities. And set out below are some of the points that were made within the Scrutiny Committee. This Welton work follows the Lincoln and Sleaford work, and there's more work planned for Boston, Horncastle, Market Deeping and Spalding, but I'm sure you know that. But the general point was from the committee, the Adult Scrutiny Committee, was overwhelming welcome and support. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. I mean, obviously, just in case anybody's listening in or later, extra care housing is about enabling people to live mostly independent lives, but with the confidence that there is support on hand if they do need it, and it means they have a much better quality of life if they were in a residential home, where of course they sort of lose a lot of their independence. So it is a national idea which has been rolling out across the country, and as a council, something we have been progressing and promoting for some time now. So, as has been said, that is this is the latest in a line of rolling out across Lincolnshire. I suppose I could have just asked to tease out the issue about these nominated rights, and there's obviously a balance between not putting the council financially at risk by paying for empty rooms. On the other hand, obviously the providers would probably, if they're taking the risk of that, there is potentially a debate to be had about that. So I just wonder, just talk us through the thinking around why 20 nominated rights was felt to be right, and whether it was considered about whether we actually had more, even though there was a slight risk of some of those not being used fully. So I'd just be interested in that sort of tease out some of those discussions I'm sure you've had.
I'm happy to answer that. So I think it's fair to say in terms of the demand conversation that it's not a science, and we've been led by conversations with Lace Housing, West Lindsey District Council and Homes England around how where the funding gaps are for the scheme in Welton and what our contribution would be towards making sure the scheme was viable. So in terms of 20, although we're only purchasing nomination rights on a bit less than a third of the totality, all 63 nominations in effect would come through an integrated panel approach with Lace Housing would have that assurance and oversight of everybody who was coming forward. So the success or failure of this scheme will ultimately stand on whether all 63 units are used. That's where we'll get maximum benefit to adult care, and that's our intention. So it's not as such that we're only interested in our 20%. Fundamentally, we want all 63 units to be used to best effect to make savings and have better outcomes for people.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Bradwell.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit confused by some of the figures that are in the report, because you're saying the annual saving to the council would be 56,000 per annum for 20 units, but actually if those 20 people were in residential care, it's about £700 a week. So I don't see that. You know, it's just this cost figure. I would have said there would have been a bigger saving. And I mean, we look in the report as well, and it quotes that it costs us 71 million for 5,973 people to be in residential already. So I just don't see how those figures equate. I mean, they're obviously probably right, but I do think that, you know, people who are in one of these extra care housing, I do think that actually, you know, I thought the benefits would be greater, because actually you're not going to have, like, if somebody's being visited for home care, we've got thousands of home care providers driving around the county delivering home care, and likewise residential is so much more expensive. And I would have seen that the extra care housing, they would have probably 2-3 staff who would then be there looking after these people, and I didn't think that would have cost so much. So I saw the benefit. It's not just about the cost benefit, as the leader said, it's about the person having a better quality of life, being able to have that interaction with other people, because we know when people are left alone in their own home, they really go downhill quite quickly, and that is when we end up having to put care in. So it's just those figures, really. I just don't see how, on the one hand, we're quoting how much it costs us for residential, and we would be able to give a percentage of how many people each year we put into residential, and this 56,000 per annum that we're only expecting that saving. It just seems a bit wrong, but then I might be wrong, because I'm not very good at figures.
I think there's a genuine question here, because obviously purely financially we're being asked to invest 1.6 million, and surprisingly low figure of 56,000. I'm not sure that's consistent with the original business case when the council some years ago actually decided to invest £7 million in extra care, and I don't remember such a low figure being mentioned at that time. So it does seem a bit counterintuitive. So perhaps somebody can help us with how this figure of 56,000 was arrived at.
Paul Gareth again.
Yeah, Rosie, happy for me to.
Yes, Gareth. I mean, you've been involved with the figures, so it'd be better to come from you directly.
Yeah, excellent. No worries. So, in terms of Appendix C in the pack, is obviously a breakdown of the bespoke model that we've got for extra care in Lincolnshire. So that's where the £56,740 has come from, and I think it's important to note that that's based on the 20 units that we're buying nomination rights for, not the totality of the 62 units that are in there. So the savings would be greater because actually we're not making that capital contribution to the other 42 schemes, but we'll still be avoiding residential care admissions by everybody that's in the scheme, because everybody will have a care and support need to be eligible to move into the scheme at Welton. In terms of the kind of annual savings calculations, what we've looked at is a third of people who have a tendency being a low need, a third being a medium need, and a third being higher need. And the actual comparison to residential care costs, we've made an assumption that it's people who are at a high level of need would avoid a residential care admission. So that's where we're starting to look at a price point for a comparison. It's a conservative estimate, actually, in terms of the experience we have that people with a medium level of care need can sometimes move into residential care. So there's a greater saving there in terms of numbers, and also around supporting people with a lower level of need, being able to age in place, to be able to stay in extra care and avoid that admission into residential care much longer. So I think in terms, I don't want to talk in great detail around the finance because it's not my purview, but I can understand the assumptions we've made to come to the calculation. And I think in terms of building in these plans into our medium and long-term financial savings, that we don't want to put too great an emphasis on the savings of extra care, but there's a suggestion that changes in practice could deliver a greater saving than what's on paper. But I think the key point is that there'll be a further 42 people who will have benefit from this scheme from our investment on 20 units. I hope that makes sense.
Well, I mean, whose purview is it on these figures?
So
Somebody
the
should be here
calculations
to
have been
tell us
delivered
that
from our finance colleagues.
Sorry?
So it's part of the medium-term financial plan calculations.
The figures of how you've worked out the savings. You said it's not your purview, but is it or isn't it?
So the financial spreadsheet has been calculated by our finance colleagues. I understand the assumptions within that.
Right, Andrew, then, your finance, so perhaps you can help us.
I guess going back to your original question about the original business case around this, it was my understanding that as well as the qualitative benefits that pursuing the strategy was, a lot of it was around future growth avoidance and cost avoidance. So that's if that's one of the responses to Councillor Bradwell's question, that would be my general response. In terms of the specific detail, I haven't got that to hand, so I'd have to take that question away about the actual makeup of the makeup of that individual saving. And sorry, I can't offer anything more than that to members today.
Yeah, and obviously there is a private document which you've been referred to, which obviously we can't share with the public, but it's just it does seem a low figure, and I'm not suggesting, but even though I think that we need to remember that even though we're investing money, we also, on behalf of the taxpayer, make sure that money invested is actually being as efficiently used as possible. So there is a worry if there isn't a realistic figure put in there that that we won't be actually making sure this extra money is being invested as strongly as possible. So, sorry, who's got their hand up? Thank you.
Sorry, it was me again. I think I just wanted to clarify a point in terms of the financial calculations. And as I said, I'm not an expert in finance, but doing a rough calculation in terms of the 62 units and the savings of 62 units, it actually looks to me like it's £5.5 million of savings to LCC over the 30-year period for all 62 units. Although in terms of the document, we only talk about the 20 that we are asking to fund today.
I see. So because the facility's there, you're saying that that would actually could have £5 million savings over a 20-year period, we're saying? What sort of period are you talking about?
So that's over the 30-year life of the scheme.
Okay, thank you for that. A bit more clarity, but I think we could just do with looking at that. I don't think it's going to sway any decisions, but I think we just need to be a bit more robust in just teasing out some of these figures. Okay, any further comments then, please? Sorry, Councillor Parker, and then I'll go and Councillor Boutroy.
It's difficult given the fact that as you pointed out, there's a pink paper here, but there is a lack of clarity that's clear in the sense of looking at the bottom of page 84, where it refers to generating a surplus from an indeterminate year. Instead of saying the year, there's a question mark within the paper. So that doesn't help in the sense of looking forward as to when this scheme will generate a surplus.
I think I would, yeah, thank you for that. I would support that point. Councillor Betroyd, did you put your hand up?
Yes, thank you. Sorry to keep going on about the finances side of that. I mean, I think it's a brilliant scheme. You know, it's a great place to put people into Welton. I think it's a lovely village. With the 1.6 million, and we're looking to build this over the next 2 years, is there a danger that build costs and other inflationary problems over the next maybe 2 years would affect the actual project? I mean, do we know whether anyone's looked into that at the moment as well? Thank you.
If I could offer to respond to that. The risk in terms of the overall project capital cost sits with the developer, that's Lace Housing. Our contribution is defined at the 1.6 million. So any market volatility risk sits with the developer.
Oh, well, that's good news. So that there is an element how much risk the council holds, and that would seem to be a reasonable outcome. Good, thank you for that. Any further questions then, please? Not seeing any. So in terms of the recommendations are there. So, I mean, I think there is an issue about just getting some clarity on the savings figure. We know that the 1.6 in theory is a fixed sum, so let's hope that does remain so. But I think we just need some bit more clarity on that. But notwithstanding that, are you all agree? Is everybody agreed that we support these recommendations? All in favour, please show. I think that is unanimous. Thank you for that. So I think we've finished that item. So with that, I think that is the close of the meeting. So thank you very much for your attendance, everyone, and we'll see you in a month's time. Thank you.